You're watching YCN, your local view. Program airtime is underwritten in part by Bar Harbor Bank and Trust. Looking to purchase your dream home, finance your business, or just find a better checking relationship? Our New Hampshire team is here to help you. We make award-winning banking happen every day. Contact us to see how we can help you. Member FDIC.
Hello and welcome to an encore presentation of
the Cougar Chronicle.
Absolutely. Now for the months of July and August.
We have some encore presentations going on. So you as viewers are going to get to see some of the best episodes. But how do you pick? It's like going to your favorite buffet and saying, which do I want to eat this time?
We had to throw a dart at a board. That's what we did, really.
So many great opportunities. And even if it's not highlighted here, it still is available both on the YouTube channel and YCN News, just so you have the opportunity to go back and recheck. And if you find something you really like and you want to share it to your friends, you can do that as well through both of those things.
Quick link, right?
But
Exactly.
but this is going to be kind of the highlights and some of the really great strong stories. But I'm glad I did not have to make this decision.
I know. We give that to Greg and Lisa to decide because it makes it easy for us. So happy summer. Glad you're with us. Stay with us. Members of the KREA are coming up. Well, welcome back to Cougar Chronicles. How cool is this?
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's our very first show, and we're so happy to be here. You know, aren't we?
I'm still just absolutely blown away by how quickly we were able to get something like this put together. And just from the first meeting with the opportunity to spend a little time with each other, and just the connection and to have this in place, it's a dream come true.
And our very first guest today.
I know.
I can't. It's so wonderful. As soon as now, it's gonna take a while to get used to calling you John instead of Superintendent Portney.
That's fine.
But as soon as John, so you said I have the perfect first guests.
I couldn't be more excited to introduce. So I've got Ian Feller and Beth Perkins that are both members of our elementary school, but more importantly, they are the co-presidents of the KREA.
Exactly, and as you know, full disclosure, I had taught here for a number of years. But can you tell us, please, what does KREA stand for? Either one. You take the question.
Well, we're the Kearsarge Regional Education Association. So we're part of NEA New Hampshire and NEA nationally, which is the National Education Association. And we're all about promoting great public schools. We're all about making sure that every child, no matter who they are, where they live, what their needs are, has as wonderful an education experience as the children here at Kearsarge do, and as I did growing up, and we all did growing up.
So just to frame this a little bit, right? So we're a public school, as we know, and the union, NEA is the umbrella national organization, and KREA is our local organization.
That's exactly right.
So it's the union, as people refer to. Is that correct, Ian?
Yeah, it's a collection of the educators in the Kearsarge region, so from all 7 schools that we have, or 6 schools that we have from 7 towns. We work closely with the administration, the superintendent. We meet once a month to go over issues or partner together to make the education better. We go to the school board meetings to share information and just partner with the community to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our students.
And is that key, John, working together?
Well, when you look at the importance of a group like this, I mean, that collective voice, and one of the things that we've talked about that was really kind of a hallmark for me is the idea of trying to build that voice. And so to have something like this that's been pre-established is so important because, again, they're in the classrooms, they're on the grounds, they're the ones that are in direct contact with our students every day. And so to have that kind of connection and that relationship is so important. Wouldn't you agree that we have to be able to have those kind of conversations? And needless to say, and shockingly to a lot of people, we don't do everything perfect from an administrative standpoint. And so a place of accountability as we try to push through things, they are also the keepers of the flame and the faith, and really make sure that we're towing the same line that we expect everybody to have.
So it's the old checks and balances, right, Beth? Everyone's watching everybody.
I teach U.S. government to my 5th graders, and we're talking about the founding principles of the country. And it's a lot about joining together and sharing responsibility. E pluribus unum is an expression that we're studying right now out of many. One. And we're also studying topics like justice, which is big for KREA and NEA. What a brilliant idea America had to make sure every child could have public education. And when we band together and work together to make sure everybody has that opportunity, we can succeed and bring about the dreams that the founders had for this country.
Can you go a little deeper into the idea of justice in education and how you help to reinforce that concept?
You know, you and I have been doing this a long time, Laura, and we always were excellent, but I think that now more than ever, the focus is on making sure that every single child is meeting their potential and having all the opportunities they can have. I have more resources for me now than I did when I was starting out 40 years ago, and that
40 years ago. That's a long time.
That means
thank you, Beth.
We're reaching every child and making sure every child has the opportunity to succeed, can choose from among all the options that they have. And that's justice, where everybody gets the opportunity.
Regardless of your socioeconomic background, your ethnicity, who you are, where you live.
That's exactly
Equal
right.
access for all.
You're receiving, okay.
That's right. And that, more than anything else, is what NEA and KREA stand for. And it's a big organization, a school district, right? There's a lot of people in a school district, and it really pays to look at what we're trying to do through many different lenses, right? We want to make sure that we're looking at what we're doing through the lens of the children, first and foremost, but also through the lens of their families and the lens of the educators who are working so hard to help everybody, and the administrators who are making it work.
Now, Ian, during COVID, that lens got very blurry, didn't it? It changed the whole pair of glasses. And how did the union KREA react? I mean, that must have been just a challenge.
I mean, it was certainly a challenge. It changed the way education was almost instantly. So it was just supporting the staff, the students, to make sure that it was equitable for everybody who was going to be receiving the education. It was equitable for the people who were going to be providing the education. So it was helping us work with administration to create something that will be beneficial for the whole community.
That's right. Now, John, as you know, you're the superintendent.
Yes.
And in the years that we've been here, the relationship between the superintendent's office, the administration, the leadership team, and KREA has always been excellent. Good level of communication. Is that important, do you see, to the organization?
Well, and let's not forget our school board. We have an incredible school board in Kearsarge, and we are lucky to have them, and we know it. So it's really a partnership among all the stakeholders, and so that means that we're all pulling for the same thing. Right. We're all heading in the same direction, and that is equity and justice and a welcoming, safe, happy place to be for all the children in our district.
And with students at the center?
100%. I mean, we talked about this, I think, a number of times, and this group embodies the idea that our job is to educate kids. Right. And then our roles revolve as we go through things. And especially, we're in a time period where we know it's tough. It's getting tougher and tougher to find teachers.
That's right.
It's hard. You have more and more empty chairs, and we're filling it with fewer and fewer new faces. Would love for you guys to kind of talk about why is teaching a great profession?
It's great to be with the children. That's what I really enjoy, the relationships with the kids, sharing my love of sports with the kids. It's a great way to give back to the community, be part of the community in general. I love to see the kids in the morning. I love to meet the families. That's why I do it.
So, Ian, when you're not representing the union at meetings or negotiations, what's your job here in the district?
I teach PE at 2 elementary schools, Sutton and New London.
Perfect.
When I was a child, my mom was a teacher. A lot of us have parents and people who were teachers, and I always wanted to be a teacher from the time I was little. I would go to school, which I loved. I would come home and play school.
Oh, I love it.
And then my dream was always to be a teacher. I love everything about school, and I never wanted to leave it. And it is a consuming profession. you give so much to that day. It's a very intense day.
It's tiring.
It's exhausting, it's rewarding, and I think we need to invest now in making sure that it's sustainable. We want to attract the very best people to the profession, and we want to be able to keep them. So we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to make there be enough of a balance between your work life and your home life so that we can attract those new faces we want and we can keep them when we've got them.
You know, when you think of it, you always think of the teachers who influenced you when you were young,
Oh my gosh.
don't you? And so this is so important, you know, to keep this organizational relationship, right, going. What do you do on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? When I went to the last school board meeting, I saw a representative sitting there, right? And so that's one of the aspects of the KREA?
That's exactly right. Catherine Heisen and I share. We take your seat that you held so well, and we share the great things that are happening in the district. We get to be informed about what the school board is working on and what the plans are for the district. We've just been through the budget process and gotten to know about that. We can weigh in if they need the perspective of the educators, and then we can keep our membership informed about where the district is going. We love to have the public there. They can Zoom in, they can be in the room. That's a wonderful way.
Very important, right, John? School board meetings, everyone can attend, whether you are attending in person
Or via Zoom.
or
And
via
you
Zoom.
can go to our website to get the link, because we post the agenda well ahead advance, and the link is there. And so that we want people to engage. I mean, obviously the best thing is to be there live, because nothing's more exciting on a Thursday night than the school board meetings.
I enjoy them. I really do. I really enjoy it because there's so many good things going
Yes,
on.
I tell you why. The reason it's true is because we are all pulling together. It could be otherwise.
No,
if it were
it is
rancorous
wonderful.
or unfortunate, we would drag yourself there.
Yeah.
But it is fun to know
No,
what's coming up.
it's so important to get the community engagement, because again, the school board, it makes decisions influenced by KREA, influenced by administrative data, influenced by different,
Student
people, and we have student voice.
Family input.
But the biggest thing is we want our community to have such a voice and to be involved in it. Again, the partnership doesn't begin at the schoolhouse door. It begins in the front of somebody's house when we're picking those kids up and being part of those families. And it's so exciting. It's such a vast difference. Not that we didn't have a level of community involvement where I came from Missouri, but what we have here is so special and so powerful and energetic. I mean,
It feels good.
it really is just, and people are getting to understand, which again is the whole point of having a show like the Cougar Chronicle, where we can really highlight these wonderful relationships. I mean, we're right now, transparently, we're in the middle of contract negotiations for the next round with KREA, and they're passionate and they're powerful. But at the end of the day, both sides of the table, I think, fully understand we're here for the kids.
John and Ian, I guess I'll address this to Ian. Does it make it easier to have that relationship? So when you're sitting down for negotiations, saying it's important for us to, recruit and retain really good teachers, and to do that we need X, Y, and Z. Is that easier to do because you have a relationship?
I would say so. Like I said before, we're trying to partner together, so we're partnering with the school board, with the superintendent, with the community to do what is best for the district. So it does make it an easier discussion, negotiation. That's what you want. It's not one versus one. It should be together, creating the best thing for both.
Absolutely.
That will benefit the students.
We were speaking before about, what we're going to talk about in the interview. That's the message I heard from both of you, unity. And
That's right.
working together on behalf of kids.
That's right. And we want to remember how supportive the community is of our district, the families and the community at large. They love us. Here we are in this town. We're right in the center of town, and we're a really important part of the community every day. But no matter where the schools are, the families and the community are so supportive of the education of our children. Whether you have a child in the district or not, everybody knows that's the future. And Ian and I get to see the future, and we know it's looking great.
It is looking great, isn't it?
These kids
I
are
love
more
that.
open-minded, open-hearted than any generation before.
So awesome.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
And we're able to reassure people the future is in great hands. We
And
get
let
to
me
see it
tell you,
from the beginning.
we have this many towns, right? And we're all one district, and that's an incredible accomplishment. Before we go, we have a minute or two left. What's the message you'd like to give about KREA and about our district? Again, either one.
Public schools, it's the way.
Yeah, they rock.
It's the way that we get engaged, informed citizens who are going to lead us into the future. That's what I had, that's what my children had, and someday when I'm a grandparent, Laura James, I want to be
My grandparent recently, so waiting to bring that up. But no, it's true. It is true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Informed, involved citizens.
Yes.
What do you think, Ian? You agree with that?
I agree.
Who are athletic and
I'm here for all the
active.
sports.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
No,
right.
it's just such a great partnership. Thank you guys so much for being here for being our
honored
first
to have
guest
been
on the
here.
show
It's
on the
so
inaugural
exciting.
Cougar Chronicle. So exciting to open up with that and just being able to highlight the value of public education and really the great work that you both do, both individually and as co-presidents of KREA. So thank you so much for being here.
This has been such a joy. And coming up on
Very
Cougar Chronicles, we have new guests. We'll be back. Well, welcome to Cougar Chronicle. This is our April edition. Can you believe it?
It's springtime is upon us.
I
As we get
know,
going from
I
there, a lot of
know.
great things. This, just always great, so much fun. And I'm excited for our first guest. So
Yes.
this person is
My interview.
you can, I'm going to
interview.
I'm going to
Yeah.
introduce him, but you can do the interview as we go. So we got Mr.
love
Larry
him.
Elliot, who is our Student Services Director, which great to have you here. Thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
for inviting me.
joining us.
Which he's here under duress.
yeah,
as you
he
can
is.
tell.
I know. He's so excited to be here.
So, when we talk Student Services Director, it's a fancy title for Larry gets all the jobs that we
Right.
can't always find somebody to do.
Everything under the sun
Exactly.
is how I explain it to
comes-
people.
Right, it all gets
So
collected
we-
and put on his desk.
You've heard Swiss Army knife before, but Larry truly
Yeah,
is
oh,
the Swiss
yes,
Army knife of the
absolutely.
district. Because we're talking special ed, counseling, nurses,
Yes. Yes.
outside service providers. The fun one that he said, no matter what happens, you could never take away from me, transportation, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You could have it when you
Yes,
pry
yes,
out of my
that's
cold
right,
dead
right,
fingers. I think you'd get rid of that one first if we could
Well,
do that.
I think we need some perspective. So, Larry, you are one of the longest standing members of the district. Tell us your background, how long you've been here for.
I arrived in 1998 as a special education teacher, so I'm in my 27th year here in the district.
It's a long time.
Yes.
And then the 16th year as the Director of Student Support Services.
Well, Larry's always was that go-to guy.
Yes.
So when we heard he was applying for student services, everyone went like this, to head that up. So you've done, and it's been an evolving job over those
Absolutely.
years.
It has changed.
It
yeah.
really has. What do you think are some of your biggest challenges that you've faced?
Well, I think the students, not necessarily the number of students, but the needs of the students, the
Right.
social emotional, the behaviors have definitely increased since when I have started.
Right. That's a big change.
Well, and I think his team has gotten probably a lot bigger. When you talk about you were the director of student services, but underneath you, what is that chain of command look like?
When I started, there was just me.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had a couple of teachers that kind of oversaw special education in the buildings.
All right.
And they were under teacher contract. But I worked for many, many years to try to get some more support. So we removed those teachers and added administrators. So now I have 4 other special education administrators throughout the district in the buildings that are my eyes and my ears to help me with my job.
Gotcha. So it went from really a one-man show,
Correct.
which is what it was, to now having administrators in every single building.
Well, 4 administrators in the buildings.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's 4 associate directors that work under. So.
Oh, there was. Wow.
And then, so
Okay.
there are, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, so there are spread out amongst the 6 buildings.
Yes.
Each one has 2 buildings roughly.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And so they
Okay.
kind of work from there. They're the on-site special ed
Boots on the ground.
administrators
Right.
that work with that. So they attend, most of the IEP meetings, or if there's 504 stuff or programming, things like that. They're responsible for the programming pieces within those buildings.
Okay. So just to back it up a little bit, so define student services for those of us who are, wondering what exactly are you doing as the student services director?
Well, and as Mr. Fortney had said earlier, student services is anything about the students.
Right.
So we're talking about special education,
Right.
school counseling,
Gotcha.
nursing services, tutoring,
Gotcha.
English as a second language, and busing.
Gotcha. So we did touch on it. I just want to
A little bit of
reinforce it because it's everything that involves
Anything
the
homeless
student.
students falls into that category.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, it literally is the buffet of if it involves touches a kid.
Right.
Now, as far as those kind of would say Maslow needs, but the idea, and then supported with that then becomes our principals and our assistant principals that work in conjunction with Larry and his team to really to get the whole kid.
Gotcha.
And go from there. So they're supporting the academic pieces. How do we get a kid to and from school? If a kid has, if a kid gets hurt, what happens there? If a kid needs leveling for educational outcomes, so then student services, special ed,
Accommodations, modifications.
all that stuff
Right,
comes in.
right.
So you have all these things that it's this great big juggernaut of a machine that is built around making
Right.
kids successful.
Right.
And there's so many moving parts that come with it. And so obviously when you have all those titles, he can't do all of that by himself because he's doing all the programming and the financing. If we have kids that get outside placed, then he's working with those agencies.
Absolutely.
The legality of certain things, because obviously when we talk specifically special ed law, and I know this from my wife, who's a retired special ed administrator,
Right.
and then just my own experience, the two things that get you sued the fastest are sports and SPED.
Interesting.
If you look at that,
Okay.
because of participation and due process and what rights and things like that. So we have a lot of that.
Part of
going
my
on.
job involves going into some of the court hearings in representing the school district.
Yes.
That's
She's
a
involved
huge
in that.
responsibility. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's almost law degree time, isn't it? I mean, I know we have attorneys that work with the district,
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
that's a really big
We
responsibility.
just know who to call. That's the biggest
Right,
thing. And they
right.
tell us what to say, and we ask questions, and then we
Right,
move forward from there.
right,
But it
exactly.
really is an all-encompassing job. And just like a great example, and we can highlight this a little bit. I mean, there was a huge move, as you remember, where we went to 2 bus routes.
Right,
Two
yes.
routes. Just
Correct.
Just this school year.
Yep.
And needless to say, there were some obstacles. There were some communication things on the front end last
Sure.
spring, and we battled some stuff as we tried to get drivers in. But all of that stuff fell on Larry. Larry is the direct liaison with STA, Student Transportation of America.
Oh, you
so
are?
they work
Okay,
directly
yeah.
with there. And because I work directly with STA for snow day calls.
Gotcha.
But for getting kids to and from, specialized and things like that, like the highlight, we had one thing that was like, why can't we just take a bus up everywhere we go? But there was one student, was it in Wilmette, that we had to go leave the district to come pick a kid up.
You have to go through other towns. Absolutely.
Oh, I don't even think of that, but of course you do. Our
Because when
geographic
family move in,
footprint is
they're
huge.
on the backside of the district.
Gotcha.
And putting a 70-passenger bus that long, so he's the one that helps decide, do we need a van? Do we need a car?
Right.
Can we run in a full bus? And works in conjunction of that. And that's just a small fragment
that
of
much of
his
your job. Right,
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right. Teeny
Just a
wee.
piece.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
If buses aren't running right, if things are late. I mean, transportation itself is such a huge juggernaut thing, and Larry's
Right.
been doing it so long. And, it's hard.
Tell us about the profile of students who you are responsible to educate in our district. You always think of the traditional, K-12, but that also extends past 12th grade, doesn't it, as well?
Oh, absolutely. The federal law changed not too long ago that it's through the 21st birthday up to age 22.
Okay.
So we have some students here up until their 22nd birthday.
And so, and
And beginning at when they turn 3.
wow, right, so it's pre and post.
And post. So,
Yes,
yeah.
and post.
So the pre-K program,
Okay.
our early childhood special ed programs, all that falls under, because remember, we have one pre-K program in 2 sites, at Bradford and then here at New
Yeah,
London.
yeah, that's a very long time, isn't it? Yeah, and then you have to identify the needs of the students you're working with and assess them.
And it's all students.
Yes, all students, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I mean, the difference between public ed versus some of the other entities, not to, everybody has their need.
No, right.
But if you live within the confines of our district, if you are within the district boundaries, we are obligated by law to provide those educational services. And the number of the rights and the important things to get kids leveled sometimes requires them to be placed either with additional services during the school day or out of district placement. And I don't know if we can do an out of district placement for less than a 6-figure.
Right.
Look at
And
that.
making those determinations, that must be challenging.
Yes.
Well, that's why we have IEP teams to do that for who know the
Right,
students.
right.
Yeah.
The
Tell
other
us-
thing is that we have some parents choose to send their students like to a charter school or a private school, And the districts are still involved in that situation as well.
Homeschooling, if a child's
Gotcha.
homeschooling.
Yeah.
Homeschooling.
We're still, if they have special services needs, we are obligated, as we should be, because those kids
Absolutely.
deserve it.
Right,
you
and
know,
people pay taxes to
do
have
those
that,
things.
right.
Exactly.
Tell everyone what an IEP is. What does that stand for?
Individual education plan.
Okay, and that's modified for each individual student.
Students.
One plan,
Who's
one student.
identified for special education.
Gotcha, okay. And so that's where that really comes into place to help you understand, are they meeting those goals? Are they, achieving that skill
For that particular student,
for
they're
that
all individualized.
one student?
And
Wow.
one student may have very small needs where
Right.
they don't need to be in any specialized classrooming. They just need some modifications that, that we can make those adjustments and go through. But then we have students that require alternative placement, so they may be in a
Right.
self-contained classroom. But the biggest piece you hear is this, the acronym, because we always have to throw it out.
Lots
So
of acronyms.
LRE, least restrictive environment.
Gotcha.
Do me a
Okay.
favor, because I hear that a lot.
Yep.
And you hear that even from people that are non-educators. What is least restrictive environment? Why is it important? And how do we make some of those determinations?
So least restricted environment is where can the child get a free, appropriate public education.
Okay, free appropriate public education.
So
Okay.
like people say FAPE when you think of that.
Okay.
So when you think of that, regular education, which is the regular mainstream classroom, is the first spot where you want students to get their education.
Right. Okay.
So majority of students get that.
Okay.
And then there's the special education in that regular classroom or pull-out services.
Okay.
And then we have programs in our buildings. We have a behavior program and our life skills program. So it's a self-contained program in our schools.
Okay.
And then beyond that, we talk about students going out of district to different schools or even hospital settings.
Gotcha.
you're
That's
talking
the range
that
of
continuum of
We're
care.
talking medical, we're talking educational, of course, legal.
Absolutely.
This is Larry, do you go home at night? This
On
is
occasion.
a big, this is
He
a
doesn't
big,
sleep.
this is
He
a big,
he plugs in and recharges
Well,
is what we do.
I mean, we have how many students in our district? Many, right?
Almost, well, the last count we were just about 1,700 kids.
So that's a big responsibility. We think of our own children, our grandchildren, how worried we are. 1,700
Yeah.
Well,
students.
and I understand too that transporting those kids, now not all 1,700 of those kids have these needs, but what we range within there, even if you figure, say you had 10% of your population that had
Right.
those IEPs, so you're talking 170 students,
Right.
and they range from not a lot to heavily involved to out of district placement. And when you're coordinating all that stuff, it's not, I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's not cheap to take care of some of these. I mean,
Right.
look at your medical bill and what your doctor
Right.
bills the insurance company. We're providing occupational therapy, speech therapy, and sometimes cognitive and behavioral type of supports, BCBA things. All of those things add up. So when we talk about what it costs to educate our kid all in, that's why those costs go up, because we're seeing a rise in the needs of those kids.
Larry, Elliot, this is a big, thank you, because this is, our children are everything to us. So when the district gets involved, we need for you to be focused, and you are. From 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I have a little one who's not speaking up to what I think they should be, or has an impediment or something, I can call the district and say, help.
Yeah, and we get referrals when a student turns 2.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's when we have to have an IEP in place for that child on their 3rd birthday, so they get services on their 3rd birthday.
Yeah. And understand too
That's a lot.
that we also run concurrent programming within our pre-K for students that aren't identified, so just kids that want to be
Right.
in pre-K.
Yes.
And we've got a waiting list of that, because one of the biggest, when we talk about least restrictive environment, all the research, we constantly come back to the research, says that students learn best when they're with their peers. And so disabled peers work best when they're non-disabled peers, that
Right.
mainstreaming piece. So we want to maintain, we maintain that ratio. So it's not just limited, so Larry's world is not just limited to students that have needs, but also just that have, they need to be developed.
That's
so
right.
We look at our pre-K program as well. So we have that mix, and that's all under his umbrella and his roof.
We, we're getting the signal to wrap it up, and I feel like you just sat down.
That's what it feels like.
There's so much, we hope you'll come back.
Absolutely.
Because, this is a vital service.
And it makes
that
up a
is
huge chunk
provided.
of what we do within the district as we go from there. But again, it's the biggest thing coming back to is these services are the right things to do if they weren't legally mandated, which they are.
It's the right thing to
It's the
do.
right thing to do for kids because every kid
They
deserves the
deserve it.
opportunity to be the best they can, and Larry
Absolutely.
takes the spirit
Well,
of that and appreciate that.
What I know, Larry, you've been doing it for years, and thank you for all you do. I was always grateful to know you were at our side.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you
so-
very much.
so
And
thank
you for
you.
letting me come today.
Yeah, and you're coming back.
I'll come
Because
back.
if he tells you have to
That's
come
fine.
back.
I can
right?
run that. I can
There
play
we
the
go.
title. I don't do it often. We'll go from there, but we'll have him back for
Yeah,
sure.
Larry Elliot, thank you so much
All
for
right.
joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Jesse Fenn is a high school technology teacher.
Perfect.
So he'll be coming in and talking about some of the work that they're doing. Very creative stuff. We were this close to being able to build our own airplane, but we missed out because
Wow, I can't wait.
but we're building a car. So he's going to come talk
Wow.
about that and what we're doing with the technology.
That's amazing. Welcome back to Cougar Chronicle. We're glad you're with us today.
They're very excited to do that as we get going with our very first guest of the day.
About this, I know
Yes.
it. It's great.
Very
And-
excited. We've got a lot, and we've talked about this a number of times. We've got a lot of really, really awesome things that are happening, things that are innovative.
Right.
You'll hear the term CTE, Career Technical Education. We live in this world of acronyms in schools, but if you see CTE, it's Career Technical Education.
Right.
Is what it comes down to. And for a lot of that, junior, senior age kids at the high school will go to Concord, to the Concord Technical
Yes.
Center. But we have a lot of innovation that's happening at our own Kearsarge Regional High School.
We do indeed.
And that is our first guest, Mr. Jesse Fenn. Hello, sir.
Hi,
How you doing?
Jesse.
Thanks for
Nice
having
to
me.
be here.
We're so excited to have you. So Jesse has been with us for a number of years, and
How many years? Because you've been
17.
Yeah, because he's been around since I was
17.
around, and
Okay.
so I was so happy to hear there was another, not old timer. You started when you were very, very young.
We call it the longevity people.
That's right. Exactly.
well-aged,
Well-aged,
like
well-aged.
cheese.
Yeah, and great historical
Fine-aged.
knowledge, exactly, of the district and what our students and families need and want, and right?
And Jesse obviously does a fantastic job at the high school with our
Yes.
kids, and we had the opportunity to really connect early, so and really kind of kindred spirits because the technical end and those innovative practices and things are awesome. He's a bit of a smart aleck, as am I myself. I don't know if people knew that, but that happens. So we've got those things going on. Good banter.
We mesh very well, very well.
It's going
Sometimes I show up, sometimes Superintendent Fortney shows up, and between the two of us, we get a full-time job.
Thing from there, but no, he's done a great job, and so wanted to get him in to talk about some things. One of the where we connected early on, and we talked about this earlier in the opening, is and it's going to be a tough one. So the airplane. So we at one point
wow.
there are projects out there that schools have the ability to build all kinds of amazing things.
Right.
And Jesse and his students, along with Charles Langell, our high school principal, and I'm sure the school counselors involved, really tried to get into it where we were going to build a fully functioning airplane, and we were in the mix.
A real airplane, not a little model airplane.
Talk about that a little bit.
We were in the mix. We had this opportunity at the, I think it was October of 23. We got into it where we wrote a grant and we made a proposal to be part of an actual plane building program. And without getting into too many details, there was some schools that put it in, and you meet with a bunch of people, and it really is an actual airplane that you build from a kit. And it was going to be brought in so that our students would get real life experience. We're not just looking, okay, here's a model, let's just look at a book or a picture.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Real life, hands-on, working with people from the community to come in who they have the experience or they fly planes.
Sure.
And so it really kind of encompassed everything that we want to do. And working with our ELO program, myself, we wrote the proposal, we sent it in, we went through everything, we did a lot of meetings. We got extremely excited about it. Unfortunately, we didn't get chosen.
It's a little tough one.
That's
that was tough news to
okay.
get. It
And
was tough
what a
news
good
to get.
process, though, for the students, too, to go
Yeah.
through and see and
Well, you
work.
think about the idea that you get these kids that go, well, what did you do when you were in high school? Well, I did service or I did this. Jesse's kids were like, I built a plane.
Right, right.
As we go
and,
from there.
And they're building something else.
But here's
I
the thing. So
understand.
we didn't get the plane. We were close.
Okay.
My understanding was that if they had 2 planes, we would have gotten a plane.
Correct.
We were
Gotcha.
that close. Like we
We're
were
number
that close.
2.
We were.
So close.
Let's not call it number 2.
Okay.
Let's call it. We'll just say
We're very close.
We were
Very
there
close.
close.
There
we
we
don't
go.
want to give credit
That's
to anybody
right.
else.
That's true.
Because we're competitive, as we should be. So one of the things that I really admire about Jesse is he's stubborn, and he, like me, doesn't like being told no. So we pivot because that's what we have to do in
Right.
education.
Right.
So what was the project? So we said, okay, the plane said no, but we got to build something. So I'm going to turn it over.
Plane said no. I said, not good enough. I want something. Students want something. Being someone who's been in the cars for my entire life, I'm familiar with a couple different car companies, and one of them is called Factory 5 Racing out of Massachusetts. They build kit cars, or they build the kits, and they send you the kit.
Nice.
And so, why not a car? If we were looking at a plane, why not a car? And the idea of this one too is it would be, we put it together, again, kids get hands-on with it. It's not just, yeah, we looked at a lawnmower engine today. No, we're looking at a car from start to finish. Now it's not the same as we're gonna pull a car and tear it apart because it's all brand new, it's fresh. And it has the parts and it has the instructions. And it is simpler than building your everyday car. But the nice thing is it's a Factory 5 Shelby Cobra replica.
Ooh.
So anybody knows a Shelby Cobra, it looks just like a Shelby Cobra. The big pitch though, I had to say, okay, how am I gonna get this passed? It's a big thing, and we have a very supportive school board. So knowing that going in, the support is there. They supported the plane program. They were excited about it. Let's get them excited about it, and also say, how about we self-fund it? And
Explain.
so my proposal included, through this process, I'm going to reach out to area people, businesses, people with their personal hands-on experience with cars and personal funding.
Gotcha.
The money won't come out of any taxpayer dollars. We're going to fund it 100% by donation, with the idea once this gets going, we build the car. When the car is complete, we sell it. It funds the next car build.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a whole different thought
Gotcha.
process. And that was with the airplane project. That was it was a competitive grant, and then you had time and effort going in. And,
Right.
But with this situation, as within that creativity, is not taking no for an answer.
Right.
Well, then we'll do it ourselves, and then we'll find the money. And so,
I love that.
That's the piece.
And Jesse, can I ask you educationally? I don't see anything wrong with starting with something new. For those folks students who are helping you who don't have that knowledge, they're getting to see every single component instead of tearing it apart. And
Exactly.
what am I tearing into? They'll see it from the ground up. Does that make sense?
See it from the ground up. It's a package that comes frame in a bunch of boxes. It's like a holiday. You get all these boxes and you open them up, and
Amazon
you
at my
unwrap them. And the great thing is you're doing everything from inventory, marketing, assembly, managing, and going into. When I first started at Kearsarge, I was a finance teacher. We're going to put some finances in there because we have this much money. We have to use it sparingly. We need a motor. We need a transmission, and all these different things have to happen for this to go together. So it's not just wrenching.
Right.
And if you're interested in coming in and working with the car build, and but I don't want to wrench anything. Great, because we have all these other opportunities within it.
Wonderful. So it's the broad spectrum,
Whole
not
thing,
just the
project
hands-on.
management,
Yes.
all of those things, because
I love
timing is
that.
everything. Because it's with it, you look at it like a set of Legos. You have a set of plans that you have to know when things need to be built, but there are things that need to have side assembly, and then how does those things get timed up? And it's just storage, inventory management. Where do we store stuff? How do we know? Because if you get 100 bolts, you need to make sure that we know where those 100 bolts are and we hang on to that stuff. And people laugh, they think, well, why can't you just hang on to 100 bolts? But when you're talking about thousands of pieces.
Absolutely. And how many students involved in the project, right? And that's
We've even started this year, so we've had to look at our space.
right.
And I've had a couple of students involved. They've made 3D models. They've measured the space. How can we rearrange this space? And we've started that because we house a lot of things in the shop area where we want to do this.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
Pretty exciting.
Boy, but I'd love to get in there and see it.
I
Isn't
know,
that
and-
exciting?
And when I've been out and about and talking to folks about some of the projects they're going, like, I wish I was back in high school.
Yes,
I'm like, well,
yes.
you can't necessarily be back in high school, but you can always be supportive of
Absolutely.
the project.
And there'll be days you can come down, turn
I was
a
going to
wrench.
say, you're going to have the superintendent in there more often than not, I think. You're going to go ahead and show you
the
that
problem
project.
is the superintendent's been trying to say that can we get a seat in it so that I can fit into a Shelby Cobra
Oh, stop
replica.
that.
Because
Stop
at the end of
that.
the day, I mean, I get it built, but at the end of the day, we're talking about a fully functioning high performance car. that we're going to get it on a track.
I'm working on that part of it. It's going. I love to take.
so
I track
excited.
cars.
But I'm giving you the directive online. We're getting it on the track.
There's a lot of opportunity for that, and I believe I promised a couple of school board members a ride too, or driving it. So
Wow.
I think that's a selling point. But it's full scale. We're driving it, and
That's awesome. That is amazing.
And then you think about that, then that turns into something that becomes self-fulfilling. So then when we talk about great traditions, so you've got kids that are like, you're going to have opportunity to do this. And it doesn't mean we're giving up on the airplane, because he's not going to, he carries a grudge like I do. So we're going to get those things.
if it comes back around, we'll take full advantage of it. But in the meantime,
exactly.
Let's build something.
let's build something. And
Right, something amazing.
Yes.
Really.
it always says to me, it's like, what's the worst someone could say? No?
Right.
Okay, well, I'll come up with something else.
We'll find those
And
things
we
out.
just keep going.
So
Yes.
what else do we have happening in your classroom? Because I know the car and the projects have been great, but you've got all kinds of things going on in the classroom. So a kid is, we got questions sometimes from, what are my kids learning? So what are the things that kids get access to and get exposed to in your classroom? Real quick. Got a couple of minutes left to finish up this
exactly.
thing.
A couple of minutes, I'll sum it up real quick. What I try to do is they come in, and I'm not going to tell them what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to tell me what they'd like to create.
Okay.
And I'm going to show them how to create that, because it could be something as simple as a birdhouse. I said, well,
Okay.
instead of a birdhouse, how about a bird condo? Because I think a birdhouse is too simple.
Yeah.
So how about one for
condo.
10 birds? Get a bird condo, Adirondack chair, great, what do I do now? Well, how about a footrest?
Right.
And the idea is, you come to me with your project, and I show you the tools that you're going to need to make that project. Because if I have the two of you in class, you may be doing something completely different from each other. You may not use the same tools. There are
right.
too many tools and too many applications for everybody to learn the same thing. So you learn all the same basics, but then somebody may come out and use a lathe. Some others may not even look at it. So it gives them the opportunity to use the different things, the different tools, learn different applications, and create what they want to create with that. And then we turn over into the other side. One of the things we worked on, we were just finishing today, was putting the top, we rebuilt a four-wheeler motor.
Okay.
Huh.
And we did what's called the top end. We put a new piston in it, new rings, new gaskets. We reassembled it all. Ran out of time to start it today, but we heard it cranking over, and it sounds great.
Nice.
Next thing is to throw some gas in and see if it goes. So we're not just learning the basics. We're going in, and the students, I don't know how to do this. Well, let's find out.
Perfect. That's STEM and STEAM learning at its best, right?
Competency-based education, exploratory,
Right.
and you think about this. What's wrong with knowing how to build something or how to fix something as a
Absolutely.
life skill when you go into the world?
Absolutely.
Jesse,
Without
thank you
doubt.
so much for being here,
Hold
brother.
on. One last question for you. You have a, no, I'm sorry.
She's like, we're
I have a minute left.
Okay.
Hey, tell us about, you have an exciting announcement.
So fundraising efforts, and you've probably heard right now, we received our first donation. And hopefully that's the first of many coming in. And as you probably saw just before February break, the announcement of the car program, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to see, as more announcements come about donations coming in.
Perfect.
We will let everybody know. We'll bring them to the school board. We'll put them out there on our social media.
It's going to be out there.
Just-
It's going to be
We're
awesome.
going to tell that story
Yeah,
big time.
yeah, a lot. Early and often,
Yes,
right?
As I go.
That's right.
Yeah, good. Now I'll let you say
Can
goodbye.
I say
I'm
it now?
sorry.
All right. Brother, thank you so much for coming in. Absolutely. Just a
Thank
pleasure
you
to
for
work
being
with
here.
you every day. Thank you for everything you do for our kids and just for being a good human being. And what a great opportunity
Coming
to
up
have
on
you come
20
in.
years with you,
Come on,
Jesse.
it's
It's
20 years.
awesome.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here and to have the support that we have. And
That's
that wouldn't
awesome.
be here without our superintendent, our school board.
Hey, I wonder if we'll be applauding in a bit when Michael Bessette comes in. He's going to be.
He's coming in. We got his segment is
Mythbusters.
always fun, changing some things up.
Yeah.
And I think he's fired up and ready to roll.
For a change.
For what? Yes. No, he's so demure, but it'll be good. We're always excited to see him, have him in. I'm glad he's been a longtime staple with the show. I see that being as long as we're sitting together, we'll have those things rolling. But no, looking forward to having him on.
We'll be back with Michael in just a moment here in Cougar Chronicle. Stay with us. Welcome back to Cougar Chronicle.
Cougar Chronicle.
I almost want to say Kearsarge again.
I know.
How many shows have we done?
Well,
I'm
this
still
is
doing
number
it.
4.
This is number, actually, it is. I
It is
know, it's
number 4.
ridiculous.
Can you believe it's gone by this quickly? It's so much fun. And that's
is.
the best.
We're having
Time flies when you're
time.
having fun, and it's always good
Well,
to spend time.
it is, and and that social, emotional piece and connection. How interesting was that talking about with our students?
Oh, well, and when we talk about the idea of our social workers, number one, phenomenal ladies that do great work for what they do. But the biggest piece is trying to really bridge that gap, because at the end of the day, it is about student learning. What can we do? What are our obligations? What do our kids need so they can be successful in the classroom, so they can be successful in life?
That's right. It's true.
That's really what we want to go with. So, all right, we're back again.
Well, Michael Bessette is back, and he's like plagues me. I was watching the Consumer Electronics Show, and I'm seeing all the AI vehicles and the, and I thought, oh my word, I know a little more now.
Yes.
But it's
Well, it's crazy what's coming out electronically. I saw a mirror that you stand on that does a full body scan of you and tells you your body mass index and all this stuff, and it makes a health plan. And
I know.
I'm like,
Calling your car to come pick you up.
It's hard enough that my wife goes, "Are you really going to eat another one of those Twinkies? I don't need a computer telling me what do we have going on, so let me live my life." So this time we're changing things up a little bit.
That's right.
Okay, so not that, just to get things going, you've heard of the Mythbusters.
Yes, I have.
Right? Well, we're going to try our own little hand at that this segment. And this time we brought Michael in to kind of talk about what are some of the myths that we're seeing as a district and a community, and how can we try to dispel some of those myths, maybe provide some information or avenues potentially. We'll see kind of where things go. It was great to have you.
Oh, we get some kind of a cool little
it's always great to see. I see him every day, and I'm bugging him more.
I come to you just stop by to say hi, and it's always the two of you. Well, and that's wonderful.
That's
a great team.
The thing, we break apart when we need to, and we get things done, but it's just been, as always, it has been just the most wonderful journey, and just appreciate his partnership.
And and on a serious note, those myths are important.
Yes.
So, okay, let's start. Number one.
What you got?
So, this is the thing.
You're like, hey.
Where to begin? There are a few of them. Let's start with because the last time that I was here, it seems like it was just yesterday. We were talking about the deliberative session, and one of the things I heard coming out of a discussion out of that was about teacher salaries. And we've got an important vote coming up, obviously, that surrounds the idea of our teacher contracts, and I think it's important to confront a rumor that's out there, or a myth that's out there, about how are teachers paid for a school year, or do they have their summers off? I think is the way it's expressed. They get paid an awful lot of money to have their summers off. It's expressed. There's 1,000 different ways people will express it. But it always just comes down to this myth about what do teachers do between June 18th and August, right? And are they or are they not paid over that period? And a lot of people just don't understand that teachers actually in their contracts are paid for 100, in our case, 88 days. Right. That's it. They don't get holidays. They don't get vacations. They get 188 paid days of work. That's it, at 6.25 hours. Multiply it out, there's your per diem rate, and there's the grid. And people want to look at that equation, and they want to say, well, they are, they're making this much, or they're making too much or too little, or whatever it is. And then they base all of these decisions on this premise or this misunderstanding that they're being paid over the course of the full year for a full year's worth of work. In reality, they're being paid for 188 days. But that does not include all the things teachers do to actually stay abreast of what they need to do, right? So there's licensure requirements that they independently work on. Goal setting is part of our Portrait of an Educator work. Yes. They will go out and find resources during the summer to read books. Even travel sometimes is a function of actual professional development for teachers, because they maybe they teach a language, they're going to Greece and they're speaking Latin, right? So they want to go and learn more about the culture. Teachers are very active individuals for a lot of different reasons, as you well know.
Well,
right?
and the part of that myth is I was one of the teachers who spread that salary out over the summer.
26
because
days.
I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to run out of money.
Yes.
Right? And so someone might have been better at budgeting, but I thought, okay, I have X amount coming in every couple of weeks, or every week, I'm forgetting now. And, and it made sense for me, but I was getting paid not for the summer, but just spread them out.
Right. Well, and that was the whole goal. You think about that historically, is that there was a time and a place where if we paid you just in the time period of your contract, then you might be applying for unemployment in the summertime, which would be an additional expense. But because we have things spread out over 12 months, we're able to take that piece spread out. So when you look at the salaries that teachers make, again, it comes back to that 188-day piece. It's not an annualized salary.
No,
if you annualize that salary, it would be significantly higher. And not to say that those teachers aren't worth that money, but it's just, it's not an apples to oranges, an apples to apples comparison. It's very different.
And what I hear you saying, Michael, too, is that, you do spend a lot of time in your off time. And I know I did, because it was something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You did lovingly, but it was also a big time commitment.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that every moment of the summer they need to recharge their batteries like everybody.
Sure.
It's a high compressed, environment for kids and for adults. And so taking the time to renew and recharge is important, granted. But what I do want people to walk away from this experience is understanding these are intelligent, highly trained professionals who have degrees, a minimum of a bachelor's degree.
Most have masters.
Master's degree, the majority have.
It's 70%. 70% of our teachers have an advanced degree.
And it's not required now. It was back when I was teaching. You had to go for that master's, but now it's not.
Right.
And people do it because they want to.
Well, because they're furthering their profession. They're wanting to add more quivers in their, or arrows in their quiver, tools in their toolbox. They want to make themselves better educators.
Absolutely.
That leads me to myth number 2.
Okay.
He's rolling now.
We need a big number 2 on the screen.
And I think it's important because, again, it comes out of the deliberative, some of the discussions that we were having. But, people want to say to us sometimes that, we have all this money left over at the end of the school year that we never were able to expend. And unfortunately, and it preceded COVID, but it was exacerbated by COVID, we cannot fill positions. We just can't. There are a number of positions that are still open throughout. Usually they're paraeducator positions, which require a little bit less education than a classroom teacher in terms of what is brought to the table. But we had a multitude of other positions that are teaching, quote unquote, or related service provider positions that we just can't fill. But we have an obligation to budget for, because we need those people in our schools. We're working many workarounds to try to either bring in consultative people to do that work at 3, sometimes 4 times the cost, right, in order to do that. And we know the best way to do it is to actually have the people on staff, which is why we try to budget for that, to make sure that they're on staff. But we can't fill those positions. When those don't get filled, that becomes a portion of the funds that holds over, and we only retain 2.5% of that. The rest goes back at the end of the year to offset taxes, right? People look at that as inefficiency. They look at that as us not being able to budget properly. And one of the things that is most commonly misrepresented out there around this argument is, well, if you know you can't fill the positions, then why budget for it? Right? And you have to. By law, we have to.
That statement makes me sad, though, because those are services for our students that aren't in place.
Well, when I've gone around to talk with select boards and town communities, we always talk about this point. Like this last year, we gave $2.8 million back to the towns to leverage against taxes, and people go, well, that's wonderful, but we see it as that's $2.8 million in planned services that we weren't able to provide.
Right.
And so it becomes those issues. We plan for everybody to be every bus route, every para, every secretary, every custodian, everything to be filled. And we have to plan that way because there's a statutory obligation to it, the legal piece to it, plus just the ethical fact of not making sure that we're not shortchanging it. And at the end of the day, our teachers do a great job. Our staff does a phenomenal job of adjusting in the heat of that. But it presents its own set of problems.
And let's take that back to myth number 1 for just a second.
Okay.
Because they are connected, I promise you.
Oh, no, we know that.
Right.
Please, go
Don't
ahead.
Don't even need AI to figure this one out. It really comes down.
Roll. You got his coffee today.
It really comes down to this: competition. And it's no different than the business world. I mean, you've had some guests here, for example, our social workers or our counselors or BCBAs, our behavioral specialists, that right now we've never had to worry about competing with our hospitals or with different types of business or trades that hire these people. And they are not bound by contracts and CBAs that limit the amount of funds that we can pay those providers. And so when we hire a BCBA or we hire a therapist, we're competing against a hospital who can pay them $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more.
Versus private.
Right? And often a series of very different benefits too. So people want to look at this as, well, they just don't want, we can't find people, or you're not a great, they're not there.
Right.
And in many cases,
their price tag is so much more money. We had a situation this last summer trying to bring in a school psychologist where we were trying to contract with that person and made a 6-figure offer to that person, and they turned us down.
Wow, okay.
And so that's the piece that you don't get, and
Right.
that's a contracted part. And so that's across the board.
I will tell you, whenever I hear salaries associated with the school, I think, my goodness, in the private sector, these would be very different. And so that's what you're competing with. It's not just going to the next district over or taking from, this is...
And there's sizable pay increases. In some places, we've lost highly qualified, very competent, caring adults that they've doubled their salary with a move that may take them 20 minutes further than where they drive now.
I'm glad you pointed this out, because that's something that you just don't really think of.
And I think it's really important when you see the vote on the teacher contract and pushing the contract through. That's a negotiated contract that takes into account all of the things that we've just described and more. And making our teacher salaries and benefits program for all of our staff, it's not just always about the classroom teachers, it's about keeping everybody in that fold competitive within the market to try to make sure that we can always fill our positions. And we struggle to do it because this year we're going to have our contract, it'll last 3 years. I promise you that tomorrow, the neighboring school district who's in the same boat that we are is going to be in that same competitive band, and they're going to look to adjust accordingly. So it's
make
always
an adjustment to their schedule that we do to ours. So you're always, and that's just school districts. That's not even a private company that says, you know what, I don't care what the school's paying you. We'll get, and then a fringe benefit.
You think of an HR professional, right?
Absolutely.
Whether private versus. We have 1 minute left. Do we have any more myths you want to do?
Oh, we got tons of
30
this.
seconds or
They're not going to
less?
be today, but
we'll have you back to talk more about
yeah.
that. But and I think those are the big things we constantly are talking about. Not misinformation, but just making sure that people are aware that a great opportunity to ask questions. We're doing the Mythbuster piece, and we do that kind of tongue in cheek. But if there are questions you have out there, contact us.
Yes, absolutely.
Directly. We want to engage in those conversations.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, Michael, it wouldn't be a show without you. So thank you for coming back.
Always fun.
It's always fun for me. Thank you.
Always enjoyable.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yes, Michael Bessette. Yes, so thank you for joining us. We're grateful for that.
Appreciate that.
You always get to be here for my favorite segment of the show. You know what that is?
Ask the superintendent.
Ask the superintendent. It's coming up soon with us on Cougar Chronicle. Well, the first question, you ready? It's your very first question of Ask the Superintendent, so I need the glasses, forgive me.
Not a problem.
Okay, so this comes from a member of the Kearsarge community from Wilmette.
Okay.
And they were talking about local issues, right, which are reflective and influenced by state and federally, possibly federal issues too.
Yes.
So what's the connection? How do you make those decisions? Are they made by you, by the school board? That's what this viewer wanted to know.
Okay, great question. So when we talk about the idea of policy typically will come from statutes that we get from the state and from the federal level. And so when those policies drive, they really drive everything that we do. It enumerates and provides what the board's responsibilities are, what my job responsibilities are, how do we expect students to act, how do we treat our staff. It covers a myriad of things. And if you really want a great chance to fall asleep early, jump on our school website and you can look at the policies. But all of that stuff comes through statute. As those things change and evolve through new statutes, we have to update our policy. So here in the district, and Missouri was a little bit different, so I'm still learning some of the process here within New Hampshire. We have a policy committee that's a board policy that meets every month, and it actually is open to the public. It's an agendaed, full-blown state meeting that gets together, and that's where policy starts. And so when we have policies that are required by state statute, then that's where those things begin. We have a New Hampshire School Board Association is one of the groups that provides us like basically the base policy language. They have attorneys that work with, and districts have the ability to make adjustments within certain parameters on that. But those start at the policy committee. When they come out of policy committee, then they go to the school board for 2 readings. By the second reading, the board has had time to digest what they're talking about. But ultimately, the board is the governing body of the district. They decide what policies get pushed forward and what policies don't. If there's adjustments to be made, they can kick those things back to the policy committee, and then we have to make the adjustments. But once the board votes on a policy, after that gavel hits and the policy's been adopted, it is now live. And so we have to make adjustments, and then administratively, then it's our responsibility to go back within our administrative team, communicate with our families, communicate with our staff and students, anything that would go through there.
Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next year on
The Cougar Chronicle. Thanks so much.